So in this video, we're going to talk about cell differentiation. And before we actually get started talking about that, sometimes when we look at the diversity of life, there's so much out there that we have to pause and remind ourselves that all living things are actually composed of cells. And that the same basic chemistry, the same genetic code, and even the same kinds of organelles occur in all these different things. However, this doesn't mean that all living things are the same. The differences in different organisms arise from the way in which the cells are specialized to perform certain tasks. In the development of most multicellular organisms, a single egg, which has to be fertilized, gives rise to many different types of cells, each with a different structure and corresponding function. In order for an organism to grow and survive, at some point you have cell division. The cells not only increase in number in a multicellular organism as it grows, but they also undergo something called differentiation, or basically becoming specialized in both structure and function. So right here, definition for cell differentiation, becoming specialized in structure and function. So quickly to review, you have an egg and a sperm in most multicellular organisms. You get a fertilized egg, and then you get many, many cell divisions. And at some point, those cells are going to specialize to do different things. You get bone cells, blood cells, different glands, nerve cells, muscle cells, any kind of cell you can think of that would be important for a multicellular organism to have. Just to review from Unit 1, the various types of cells, blood, muscle, epithelial, arrange into tissues that are organized into organs and ultimately into organ systems. So here we've got some cardiac muscle cells, individual cells. Then we've got cardiac muscle tissue, and then together, a bunch of different tissues working together create the heart. Again, this is just to review. Our smallest thing we're going to talk about is an atom or a couple atoms together of different types would be a molecule. Then you would get different organelles inside of a cell. You get a bunch of cells together, then you get a tissue, and then a bunch of different tissues together, you get an organ, and a bunch of different organs that are all working together to perform the same function. Then you get an organ system. And bigger than that would be the entire organism itself. Remember back to our levels of biological organization project from the beginning of the year. Nearly all of the cells in a multicellular organism have exactly the same chromosomes and DNA. The only time that you should get differences would be in germ cells. We're going to talk more about that when we talk about reproduction, but for now you can just know that germ cells are eggs or sperm, and they're actually going to have less DNA than all the other cells in the body. During the process of differentiation, only specific parts of the DNA are activated. So even though most of the cells in the body would have exactly the same chromosomes and DNA, you're going to turn on specific parts of the DNA in order to make proteins at a certain time. And because of the different timing and different genes that are going to turn on and off, this actually creates that specialized cell and can actually change its structure, what it does, what it makes, and give specialization in that way. When we talk about cell differentiation, we also need to talk about something called stem cells. You might have heard of the term stem cell, but we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about it to really understand what this means. So because all cells contain the same DNA, all cells initially have the potential to become any type of cell. Once a cell differentiates into a certain type of cell, like a blood cell or a nerve cell, then this can't be reversed. However, in the body, we have certain groups of stem cells that are unspecialized and continuously reproduce themselves under certain conditions, and they have the ability to differentiate into one or more types of specialized cells. Stem cells have the ability to divide and renew themselves, remain in an undifferentiated form, so not have to choose to be a bone cell, muscle cell, nerve cell, for example, and they can develop into a variety of specialized cell types. So cells can go from one stem cell to two stem cells or more, or they can go from a new stem cell and a specialized cell. So you're still getting division from one cell to two, but it may stay as a stem cell, or one of them may turn into that specialized type of cell. We have three types of stem cells we're going to talk about. Totipotent stem cells can grow into any other cell type. So in this instance, we're talking about something like a fertilized egg. When the egg and sperm meet, this fertilized egg can give rise to all the cells in an entirely new organism. I always remember totipotent because it refers to the potential of any cell, and I always think of the word total, the totality of the organism. Pluripotent stem cells, over here, can grow into any cell type except for a totipotent cell. So you can't go backwards. These would be embryonic stem cells. So once a few cell divisions have happened in development, we get a little mass of cells inside of a sort of bubble of cells. And these can turn into almost any type of cell. Neurons, skin cells, muscle cells, bone cells, but they can't go back to becoming that fertilized egg. Then we also have multipotent stem cells. And so these can also be referred to as adult stem cells. These are the things that you and I have in our bodies. So for example, you have blood stem cells that can turn into red blood cells, platelets, white blood cells, practically any type of cell that your circulatory system would need in the blood. But they can't go back and then somehow turn into a nerve cell. So they have multiple options, multipotent, but they can't become anything. They're directed down the line of only becoming different types of blood cells, for example. Or this would be the same thing with bone cells. You have bone adult stem cells that can become any type of bone cell, but they can't become a muscle cell or any other type of cell. So in summary, embryonic cells, which have not yet differentiated into various cell types, are called embryonic stem cells or totipotent stem cells. Stem cells found in adult organisms, for example, like bone marrow, are called adult stem cells. Scientists have recently demonstrated that stem cells, both embryonic and adult, with the right laboratory culture conditions, can differentiate into specialized cells. And this is opening up a lot of opportunities to do research to help with many different types of diseases, and is something that is really of interest to a lot of medical professionals and scientists.